All right, everybody, welcome back to Gridiron Gang, a Detroit News Lions podcast. Today is Thursday, January 15th, 2026. Happy New Year, everybody. We have a great show for you guys today. We're going to talk about some known OC candidates, discuss their fit with the Detroit Lions. We're going to get into some news and notes. We're going to review the season that was for the 24 and 25 draft classes and try to project what their outlook might be next season. And then to close the show, we got a new game for you guys. So it should be fun. Before we get to all that, I'm Nolan Bianchi. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Richard Silva. Richard, how are we doing today?
When is the deadline to say Happy New Year? It's got January 15th has to be blown the deadline.
I don't know, but this is only our second show. Our second midweek show since we did the podcast, or since the new year. So I feel like it's semi.
You get two.
You get two Happy New Years. All right. Well, I'm glad we got that cleared up. There's a big controversy. I don't know if you know this. You probably don't because you don't watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, but it's a whole big thing. But if you're new to the show, thanks for stopping by. If you're not new to the show, please do us a favor. Press that like button. Press that subscribe button when you wake up every Thursday morning. There'll be a new podcast episode waiting in your inbox, your Spotify, your Apple Podcasts, your Google Podcasts, whatever you listen to. Subscribe to us on there, and we'll be there waiting for you on Thursday mornings. Rich, we are going to jump into some known OC candidates because the Lions, since the last time we talked, have started to identify some of the guys that they want to bring in to replace John Morton. We gave the people a list of 10 candidates last week, and I don't think a single one of them are on the list of known OC targets that we're going to talk about today.
To be fair, Mike McDaniel was not fired when you made that list. And I think Mike McDaniel would have been on your list had he been fired.
Yes, he would have. Thank you. That is fair to me, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Do you want to start with McDaniel? Do you want to list the four and then break them down one by one? How should we do this?
Yeah, we can list the four. So we got we have four guys. So either been reported that these guys are planning to interview with the Lions, or in some cases stuff that we were able to kind of confirm ourselves. But Mike McDaniel interviewed Tuesday. Mike Kafka, the Giants interim coach and former offensive coordinator, reportedly interviewed on Wednesday. And then also interviewing this week, you have reportedly T. Martin. He was the Ravens QB coach, formerly their wide receivers coach. And you will remember Tennessee fame won them a BCS national championship. So shout out to T. Martin. And then lastly, rounding out the group of four we got here is Jake Peetz. He's the Seahawks passing game coordinator, a job that he's had over his last two seasons. So here we are. I think it's 2 seasons as a passing game coordinator, 1 season with Seattle, 1 season with the Rams.
Gotcha.
Is that right?
That sounds right. I feel like we should
spreading misinformation again.
I feel like
let me double check that. Yeah. No, you're correct. He's been with the Seahawks passing game coordinator for 2 seasons. I apologize.
You're good.
That's the last time we're going to do that. I promise, folks.
Let's start with McDaniel because I think that's the big fish that everyone wants to talk about, right?
Yeah. Coming over here from Miami, a weird 4 years in Miami. Like, he went there to fix Tua. They go 35-35 over his 4 seasons. Seemed like he did, in fact, fix Tua, but then that quarterback ends up dealing with some injury problems. After the 2023 season, they have a crazy shedding of roster talent, and things just kind of fall apart there. I'm a little bit surprised that he was even let go as late in the game as he was, but there are some pretty big fish out there. John Harbaugh, to name one, and Kevin Stefanski, guys out there that will be desirable, and I wonder if there was a candidate they had in mind when they pulled the trigger on parting ways with them.
Well, I mean, I think they have obvious connections to Harbaugh because of the owner and his Michigan ties, and then they have obvious connections to Shula because he's the grandchild of the legendary Dolphins coach. I think with McDaniel, and we talked about this, I don't recall if we've talked about McDaniel on the podcast at all. I think we did briefly on our last midweek podcast episode. I think what's intriguing about McDaniel is the run game stuff, right? Like, that's what Shanahan and all the Shanahan tree guys do really well. He does it really well. Even like this year, they go 7-9, but the back half of this year where they went like, I don't have the record in front of me, but they went like 6-2 down the stretch to finish with a somewhat respectable record and made some people think that McDaniel was going to survive, especially after he did survive Black Monday. Like, it waited until later in the week. The run game stuff that they were doing was awesome. Like that, you won't really ever have to worry about that with McDaniel. I think the concern with him, and maybe this is a picky concern, because don't worry about 2 years down the road. Just worry about 2026 and getting the best possible guy you can get for 2026. But you run the risk of, he's already getting head coaching interviews this cycle. If he's either doesn't get picked for one of those jobs, or he decides he wants to go be the OC here in Detroit or in Philly for 1 year, rehab his image and get a better job next year, he might only be here for a year. And then you're talking about, that'll be 4 OCs in the Dan Campbell era, 3 of them being 1 year guys. 2 of them were 1 year guys because you fired them. And in this scenario, it would be another McDaniel would leave because he would assumingly have success here in Detroit with all the weapons. I think that's kind of, like I said, though, don't worry about that. Worry about 2026.
Right. Well, and here's what I will say about that, because we have addressed that fear and that general concern of, the next OC hire, the type of guy you're going to get. Is he going to leave? Or do you go and try to get a guy like John Morton, who probably isn't going to get any head coaching looks, even if he does have success here? I do think, though, because I think I've seen this kind of as a negative, to your point, that you don't want another guy to come in here that could lead to some instability if a guy like Mike McDaniel came here for 1 year and then just went somewhere else. But on the other hand, and this is not college, but remember all those Alabama staffs that were absolutely just loaded with guys trying to rehab, great coaches who just had a bad bounce and needed to
rolled in and out of there.
Yeah, they did. And they were great coaches. And you look back at some of those rooms and it's like, holy crap, how are all that collection of coaches in one place? And I'm not saying that's going to happen. And obviously Dan Campbell will need to get a lot better at making his OC hires, because as we've talked about, 2 of his 3 offensive coordinator hires have not worked. But I also wonder if he gets a little bit more aggressive, if he's willing to entertain candidates like McDaniel, because I also don't know, do we think that a candidate like McDaniel, do the Lions entertain his employment last season? But coming off that 15-2 season, probably feeling a little bit invincible, probably feeling like Dan Campbell actually holds the keys to the castle there. And he does. But, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world for your program if you do eventually get to that spot and you are kind of like that rehab kind of place where people come in and they try to put it back together.
I think ideally you would find what the Eagles have with Fangio, different side of the ball, but a guy that is probably not going to get another opportunity to be a head coach. He's entrenched there. He is going to be Sirianni's DC, kind of like Flores. I know Flores is getting interviews now, but if Flores didn't have the failed stint in Miami, Flores would have been a head coach 2 years ago. Or 1 year ago.
Well, if Flores didn't have active pending litigation against the National Football League, he might have been a head coach 2 years ago.
Correct. Also that. But the problem is I don't know. There's not an obvious candidate like that has some outstanding circumstances, or is just older in their career and maybe doesn't have the aspirations to be a head coach again. There isn't an obvious offensive choice like that, which is why, like you said, it would have to, if you did go down that path, it would have to be another Morton, where there certainly are guys like that exist that are older and maybe that this is all that they want, but it's not a slam dunk like Fangio is. Fangio, it's not that 100% that a hire is going to work, but everyone at the time was like, wow, it's an awesome hire. It's probably going to work for a long time, and it has. So I think that's the problem. To your point about getting maybe some outside candidates. So to be clear, I think at the Combine last year, Campbell said that between OC and DC interviews, and maybe he was talking about the whole coaching staff, he said they interviewed between 23 and 26, I think was his range of candidates that they interviewed. So we didn't hear all of them. They didn't all get reported. So they could have totally done a lot of outside the building interviews that we just aren't privy to. But this year, the fact that we know for certain that, these 4 guys alone, I'm assuming there's others as well that we probably haven't heard about yet. McDaniel, Kafka, Martin, Peets, very different, all from different trees. I think so far, it feels like a healthy, good search so far.
Yeah. McDaniel, just to wrap up some details about him, he is from that Shanahan tree, like you alluded to earlier. Spent 11 seasons with Kyle through stops in Washington, Cleveland, Atlanta, and then San Francisco. Eventually became the offensive coordinator in San Francisco in 2021. Immediately got promoted to head coach. Goes to Miami. You know, couple weird, like I said, couple weird years at the end there. But that 2023 season, like they were the number one scoring offense, the number two total offense. Like they were absolutely buzzing. And if you don't like think the world of that quarterback, like I think that's kind of a tip of the cap to all McDaniel.
Well, and also, so for all of the nice things I said about the run game, and I think A-Chain is the perfect example of that this past year. But I think it was the 2022 season where, because that was, so St. Brown and Jamison Williams went over 1,100, both of them. That's the first duo to both go over 1,100 since Hill and Waddle did it in 2022. It's not that long. It's like 3 years. Yeah. But, you know, there's a lot of good receiving duos that roll in and out every year, Jamar and T and Tyreek and Waddle again. But the fact that, you know, like he's two elite receivers can live in Mike McDaniel's season and both eat well while also having the run game chops that he has, like it lines up very well with like what the Lions have in two elite receivers and one of the game's best backs in Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah. Last thing I will say about McDaniel, the season that they had, you said they finished 6-2 down the stretch. That is insanely impressive. That team stunk. They were so bad. When we saw them for training camp, I said this team might not win a game this year.
I thought they were, after they lost to Cleveland, that was week 7. I thought they were dead, like over OVER. Like McDaniel might not even last to the end of the season. And then they finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-3. So not 6-2. I was one game off. But still, like a remarkable finish, especially after they started. Not only did they lose to Cleveland, and they got smoked by Cleveland in that game. It was 31-6. They started off 0-3, and they didn't quite have the revival that the Texans had, where the Texans have like won 10 straight games. Not since going 0-3. They've lost games since 0-3, but they've only lost like 2 games since week 3. Not quite that for Miami, but kind of a similar-ish turnaround.
Yeah. All right, moving on to Mike Kafka here. Lions set to interview him on Wednesday. That could, in theory, be happening as we speak to you guys right now. A really interesting path for him, too. Like a guy with no Campbell connections. I think he started his coaching career in 2016 as a grad assistant at Northwestern, immediately goes to the Chiefs and ends up as the quarterback's coach for Patrick Mahomes in his first season as a starter. And that was just like a rocket ship for him. A couple years later, he ends up being the OC of the Giants. He actually goes there with Dable. He was the OC for all 4 seasons there in New York. And as things kind of started to go a little bit sideways this season, he ended up being the guy to take over after Dable got fired midseason. So don't really know what to make 100% of maybe the end of season performance that the Giants had, but he did get some inspired play out of Jackson Dart in a situation where he was missing Cam Scatterboo, Malik Neighbors, a whole bunch of other weapons on that team.
So I have 2 trains of thought when I think about Kafka. I think the encouraging parts are obviously that he worked with Pat and they had great success, and coming from the Reed tree, like all of those things is part of it. And then also, like, they did have a lot of success with Dart this year when Dart played, like when Dart was healthy. And like you mentioned, that was with Malik Neighbors missed dang near the whole season. Cam Scatterboo missed half the season. Even though like backup running back Tyrone Tracy missed some time with a shoulder injury. So the fact that the offense was as good as it was is, I think, a feather in Kafka's cap. Those are the pros. I think what gives me a little bit of trepidation, and maybe this is more of a Dable thing. Like maybe this is, thank you. Maybe this is just a product of Brian Dable and clashing with his assistants, because like we've said before, that seems to have a history of doing that. Him and Wink Martindale butted heads a lot, but it seemed that Dable and Kafka kind of did as well, in the sense that Kafka, I think it was during the 23 season, he got play calling duties taken away, given back multiple times, and then in 24 got them totally taken away. And then this past season gave it back to him. So obviously, I think that's a knock on Dable, like for to have that kind of up and down, like lack of consistency, lack of decision making. Like if you're gonna do it, do it. Like I know there's probably some example of a play caller losing responsibility and then getting it back, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Like, that feels like tough to put the toothpaste back in the tube after you essentially demote a guy to be like, okay, now come back. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think of that in any negative way without really like knowing the details of those different
Sure.
back and forths. But what I will say is I'm a lot more. I feel like the fact that he was the OC for all 4 seasons there speaks a lot more to his competence than whether or not he had play calling duties. And I agree with you that I think that's probably just a Dable thing, because that's just what a guy does when he's like, oh crap, like things are getting sideways here. Like I'm going to lose my job. And I don't know.
No,
Dable was on the hot seat for a lot of his tenure in New York.
For sure. Like, Kafka probably shouldn't be knocked for the general dysfunction that is or has been the Detroit Lions or not the Detroit Lions, excuse me, the New York Giants over the last few years. But I guess it's just something to think about. But I mean, you can't argue what he did in Kansas City, and what he was able to do with Dart this year was impressive as well.
T. Martin, one of the guys that we also mentioned here, one of the guys the Lions are set to interview this week. He comes from Baltimore. I think his status is a little bit in flux. Like, I don't know if he's officially fired. Sometimes these things get a little weird when like a head coach gets fired and it's like, all right, well, the tight ends coach still works there and he's going to wait. Like Ben Johnson was the tight ends coach. And then he's like, all right, well, I guess I'll just wait till Dan Campbell comes here and see if he likes me. And then he likes him. Then he's like, all right, a year later, hey, buddy, want to be OC? And then next thing you know, off and running. So
do you think that's how the conversation went? Hey, buddy.
I think so. Yeah. Hey, buddy. Probably said, hey, man. So most recently comes from Baltimore. He spent 4 or 5 seasons there, QB coach, wide receivers coach. Before that, he was with his alma mater at Tennessee's wide receivers coach. And then before that, his only experience as an offensive coordinator of his career came at USC from 2016 to 2018.
During that time at USC, he coached Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I'm curious. I feel like that'd be a great question for St. Brown whenever we talk to him again, which will probably be like OTAs or whatever. And this only works if they do hire T. Like, I wonder how much a player like that, where like you often hear of quarterbacks being involved in some of these decisions, and not that the quarterback is making the decision, but like their opinion definitely matters. Like Jared Goff's opinion matters in this. They're absolutely going to factor what he thinks. I wonder if they would do something like that for St. Brown, who's not a quarterback, but is absolutely like, I don't know, if you're ranking pieces of this team like that are part of this core, like he might be like number 2 to Goff.
Mm-hmm.
Like so I if they do hire T, I'm curious if we can talk to St. Brown and see if not ran things by him. That's the wrong word, but if they, or the wrong phrase, if they, were interested in what he had to say about T.
Yeah, another interesting thing about him is that his only NFL experience has come in the last 4 years. So a little bit new to the NFL game as well, in addition to not having called plays at the NFL level.
Right, and I mean, he had 3, 4, 5. This is his 3rd year as the quarterbacks coach for Baltimore. Like, not a lot of time, but it's also kind of the Kafka thing. It's like, worked with Patrick Mahomes, that's great, but also it's Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of the same thing here. Like, coach the quarterback that won an MVP. Did he win the MVP because you were there, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, probably not, because he won the MVP back when T. Martin was still at Tennessee. Last up here, we have Jake Peetz, the Seattle Seahawks passing game coordinator. Just to clear up some things from the top of the show, he spent the last 2 seasons as the Seahawks passing game coordinator. Before that, with the Los Angeles Rams as a pass game specialist and an offensive assistant. So a little bit of that Sean McVay tree, worked under Mike McDonald. An interesting thing about this guy, I texted him about you yesterday. He has been in the coaching profession since 2006, and he has yet to hold the same job with the same team in consecutive seasons. Isn't that weird? I'm gonna run through them for you real quick. We'll start in 2012 because I think he had a little bit of a hiatus from coaching. But so 2012, he joins the Jacksonville Jaguars, an assistant QB's coach. 2013, Alabama, offensive analyst. 2014, Washington, offensive quality control. 2015, Oakland Raiders, senior offensive assistant. 2016, Oakland Raiders, assistant quarterbacks coach. 2017, Oakland Raiders, quarterbacks coach. This is a pretty good stretch for our guy, Jake Peets. He's staying with one organization for 3 seasons, albeit in a different role each time. But yes, to your point, a promotion. Then he goes back to Alabama in 2018 as an offensive analyst. Then he goes to Carolina to work with the Panthers as a running backs coach in 2019. Then goes to then stays with the Panthers and becomes their quarterbacks coach in 2020. Then goes to college and takes over at LSU as the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. Then he goes to the Los Angeles Rams, is an offensive assistant. Then the next season in 2023 is a pass game specialist. And then these last 2 seasons are the only 2 seasons that he's worked the same job consecutive years. So that's pretty fun. He also, that hiatus that I talked about, he was working with the Jaguars as a scout.
I think if you want to knock Jake Peets, it's the lack of play calling experience. And you can make the argument like, well, he's so young, like because it was with LSU, right? Like it was, that was the only time he called plays.
And a pretty weird year too. It was coming off the Joe Burrow year.
I was gonna say it didn't go great.
Yeah.
They went 6-6. The offense was, or 6-7, excuse me. The offense was okay. That was Orgeron's last year. He got fired at the end of that, or they parted ways, or whatever that actually ended up being. But the fact that I think he is so young, maybe you can. It's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can live with it.
And
40 years old.
To your point, that season where Ed Orgeron got fired was like super tumultuous in Baton Rouge. There was a lot of things going on.
Yeah, it was a rough place to be. Again, how much should a guy?
Rough place to try to start a career.
Yeah, how much should a guy be knocked for the general dysfunction around him? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's another thing I was going to say. I actually think the whole like didn't stick with one organization, like the job hopping is a little bit eyebrow raising. But at the same time, like he hasn't taken jobs with the best organizations. Like we talked, like Carolina, Oakland, like those are some of the organizations that we talked about. Washington back in 2014. But I think like for a guy who's as young as him, I think that's okay. Like you're just trying to kind of like get a little bit of experience everywhere. And it seems like he did that. So yeah, super interested in his candidacy.
And the fact, I mean, why teams are interested is how awesome the Seahawks passing game has been this year with Darnold and and all those guys. And even last year, like with Geno, I thought Geno played awesome.
Yeah.
And not that Peets wasn't there the whole time with Geno. He was only there in 2024 with him. But I thought Geno was as good as you could have hoped he played in 2024. And you're kind of saying the same thing about Darnold this year.
Is the Philadelphia Eagles?
Could I add one more thing? On Peets?
No.
So,
no.
If you want to talk about quarterbacks and who these guys have worked with and who most is like Jared Goff, you know, there's not great identical comparisons, but Mike McDaniel and Tua, that's probably second closest. Kafka with Mahomes and Dart, not really. T. Martin with Lamar Jackson, not really. Jake Peets, I mean, Geno Smith and Sam Darnold is probably as close as you get to Goff on this list.
That's the archetype, baby.
Yeah, something to consider.
Grip it and rip it. All right. Do you think the Lions OC job is the best OC job? So the reason I'm asking this, it might sound obvious on the surface, but Philly just parted ways with Kevin Patullo, their offensive coordinator, so they're also looking for a new OC. Do you have any thoughts on which job might be better? Obviously, Philly coming off the Super Bowl, maybe has more O-line intact, but what do you think?
I think that's really the only thing that would, if I was in Mike McDaniel or whoever potential offensive coordinator shoes, that would be the only thing that would pull me to Philly, if I'm being honest. The fact that the offensive line is, I think, in a little bit better shape than Detroit's. I know their interior kind of took a step back this season as well, but I still think they feel better about theirs than the Lions do about theirs. But kind of everything else, offensively speaking, I lean Lions. The weapons are, call it a wash. Like, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Jahmyr Gibbs versus A.J. Brown, Smitty, and Saquon. Like,
oh, AJ Brown not gonna be there.
yeah, you kind of call that a wash. And then you talk about the quarterback play. I think that those are the two most important things that an OC should be looking at, right? Like when weapons are equal, when offensive line, whatever, is kind of the same-ish. Head coach, quarterback, who would you rather coach under? Who would you rather quarterback coach, or like coach as a quarterback? I think there's a pretty clear argument to make Jared Goff over Jalen Hurts, especially after the season that Jalen Hurts had.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, not that we know Sirianni or Campbell like personally, like I, from the outside looking in, would rather work for a guy like Dan Campbell than Nick Sirianni. So that's what would lead me over to the Lions over the Eagles, and also the other OC jobs that are open. The Bucks, the Chargers, and the Commanders are already filled with David Blau. Not that though, like if you want to talk about best quarterback that's available in that group, it's Justin Herbert. So like that, that's sure. The Chargers should not be slept on either.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're referring to with Campbell and Sirianni too, like an extension of that, is just the general like vibe around the team. Like again, the Eagles have the Super Bowl, but everything around the Eagles is kind of a mess. And do you want to join that?
And also a lot of what pushed them to the Super Bowl, and maybe this is like in a roundabout way a pro for the offense because complementary football and all that, but like Philly won the Super Bowl because its roster overall was the best roster in the NFL, like because their defense was arguably the best defense in the NFL. Like, but if I'm talking as an offensive coordinator specifically, forget the defense for a second. I think I lean Detroit.
Yeah. But I do think that also plays a factor too.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you said, like I said, complementary football. Oh, what is that banging noise?
Is somebody doing construction in my house without me knowing?
In the next room, is your wife building something in the next room?
I am home alone. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back. I don't know what we were talking about, but
you guys should have seen. You should have seen. Nolan's not going to say it because he's humble. Like intruders broke into his house. He had to fight them off. It was nuts. I saw it all. I saw it all.
It was. Yeah, we've been on break for about 30 minutes here. I've just been taping up some knuckles, making sure that you guys can't see the blood on the podcast. No blood on the jersey, you can't play.
It's like 4 hours later.
Yeah. So there's a distinct possibility that sound happens again, and if it does, I apologize. I got no control over it. I just searched. Like it sounds like it's coming from inside the wall, which probably not correct, but that's how close it sounded in my head. So, what were we talking about?
We're talking about how this line job compares to some others, and I think we exhausted how it compares to some of the other OC openings. But I think it's something else to be considered is that there's 9 head coach openings, and assuming that every one of those guys wants their guy at OC next year, that all of these new head coaches are going to make their own hire. Dang near half the league is going to have a new OC. Like, it's unfortunate timing for the Lions to be in the market for one this offseason. Now, granted, there are also, because 9 head coaches got fired, there are potentially 9 OCs available. Like, and again, not every OC is going to be desirable, I guess. Like, Kevin Patullo got relieved of his duties. He might stay on staff, apparently, but relieved of his duties. I don't think anyone's going to be racing.
Yeah, that'll work.
I don't think anybody is racing to hire Kevin Patullo, but there are options like Todd Monken, like from Baltimore, like he is now available. So there is some pros that come with the cons, but I think it is a general negative for this franchise to unfortunately be looking for an OC when every other team in the NFL feels like is also looking for one.
But this is also a case of Lions don't concern themselves with the opinion of offensive sheep,
Well, I'm just saying that if they really want to hire Mike McDaniel, for instance, Mike is probably going to tell them, hold on, I have 4 other head coaching interviews to do. Let me get back to you.
Sure. All right. Real quick, we're going to take a break for a word from our sponsor.
For 44 years, Varsity Ford in Ann Arbor has been more than just a dealership. We're a family, proudly serving yours. As one of the top volume Ford dealers in the world, we're proof that when you treat people right, they come back. Generation after generation. And now we make it easier than ever with complimentary pickup and delivery for both sales and service, so you can buy or service your Ford without leaving home. Varsity Ford, driven by family, built on tradition.
All right, segment 2 here at the Gridiron Gang podcast. Thanks for tuning in with us on this fine Thursday or Friday or Saturday, whenever you're listening to the show. That's a beautiful thing about podcasts. You don't got to listen to them right when they're released. If you haven't done so already, please press that like button, subscribe, rate the podcast 5 stars. It really helps us grow and helps us do more cool stuff with the podcast. And we like doing the podcast. So, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. Let's get into some news and notes here. First up, we have Sheila Hamp delivering a letter to the fans. Lions owner Sheila Hamp. Richard, what did we hear from Mrs. Hamp when she gave her end of season letter to the fans earlier this week?
So I think she's done this 3 years in a row, if I'm not mistaken. It might be longer than that, but I know for a fact it has been at least 3 years in a row, where she sends it to the Lions loyal members, which is the season ticket holders, right? And I mean, I won't read the whole thing, but the gist of it is essentially starts off, of course, thanking the fans, and then says she acknowledges, the 9-8 elephant in the room. Like our expectations were much higher than this season. Like, the results were not good enough. But I think the key phrase in the whole letter that she wrote is, while we do not believe it is time for drastic change, this is an opportunity for us to refocus, evolve, and move forward. And I think we've heard a lot of that from some of the Lions, brass. Like Brad Holmes talked about it, wouldn't really go into detail when pressed about it, where he said, like, yeah, there's a couple things I've identified that I'm going to change. We said, like, what? He was like, yeah, I'm not going to tell you. Dan Campbell hinted at some of the things that he was talking about. Seemed like he was talking about how there needs to get back to a little bit more competition, maybe perhaps in the locker room or just in the organization.
Can I say something?
What's that?
I don't really understand that one. This was the best roster they've ever had.
I do understand that one.
You do? Like,
I think
the defensive back depth was sensational. Top to bottom, like defense. Top to bottom, you were going into every position except for the edge group and being like, that's a pretty good unit.
So if we're just going to say a couple examples off the top of my head, Christian Mahogany was not handed a starting job. Like, he earned the starting job. However, after Frank Ragnow retired, it was going to be those 3 guys in the middle. It was going to be Mahogany.
But that's a June occurrence.
It was going to be Tate. Another example on the edge. Davenport, when healthy, was gonna play 60% of this team's snaps. He just was. There was nobody else that was gonna take those snaps from him because they don't trust Al-Quadin Muhammad against the run. There were spots on the team where it felt like, not that guys didn't work hard or didn't try hard or anything like that, but there really was no other option. It was gonna be them, and that's kind of long and short of it. Brock Wright was gonna be the second tight end on this team, no matter what. Nobody was going to jump Brock Wright on the depth chart.
There's only so much you can do, though. Like, I understand you want to have a tight end 3 who can be a good tight end 2, but like, is that realistic? Like, I don't really know. I see your point about the offensive line, but that was a surprise. Depending on how you want to, if you want to call it a surprise, whatever. It was a surprise June 2nd occurrence that completely changed everything about how they were going to structure that competition.
I think a perfect example is wide receiver 3, where if Khalif Raymond doesn't exist, it just gets handed to Isaac Tesla week 1. And depending who you ask, maybe you just wish it did, and he would have whatever developed along faster. But you have a guy like Khalif Raymond that Isaac is not ready. I remember early in the season, not his fault. Like, the playbook is huge. He did spend 2 years at Arkansas, but he played at a smaller school prior to that. Like, he would come onto the field, and there was often times like you saw him looking around, being like, I don't know what to do. We heard in Baltimore where Khalif cramped up, he comes onto the field and he's like, Saint, what's the play? Like, he was still learning early in the season, and you had a guy like Khalif that could play until Isaac was ready, and then Isaac was ready, and off you go. I think that's like the perfect example of what you like in as many places as possible, and it wasn't probably in as many places as Dan Campbell would like.
But they had Tim Patrick, and then they were like, okay, we're going to let Tim Patrick go after training camp.
Sure,
and then give Tesla
but like, you still had Khalif and Isaac for one spot.
Yeah.
But anyway, we back to Sheila's point. No drastic change, which no overhaul of any departments or anything like that, because that's whatever. Still went 9-8, and still were a couple plays here, a couple plays there for making the playoffs. But on the other end, you were also a couple plays here, a couple plays there from having a worse record than 9-8. You were going to say something?
It is interesting that she felt the need to say that.
Sure, yeah.
Or that she felt had the need to say that.
Sure. She also said, before capping with hope for the future, we're excited about 2026. She said that they're all committed to doing whatever it takes to further their success. But right before that, she says she's very proud of the 36 wins that they've accumulated after over the last 3 seasons. However, quote, that success doesn't happen by accident, but it also does not guarantee future success.
Facts.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Preach.
So Sheila speaks.
All right, we also have Kelvin Sheppard interviewing with the Miami Dolphins for their head coaching position, left vacant by one Mike McDaniel. That'd be a lot of fun, wouldn't it?
A trade.
That's what happened to the Red Wings back in, I think it was 2021 or 2022, when they let go of Jeff Blashill and they hired an assistant coach from the Tampa Bay Lightning to be their new head coach. And then Jeff Blashill went to go take that guy's old job in Tampa Bay. So just a little swapsy. Just something about that just tickles me.
Yeah, no, it'd be cool. I mean, good for Shep. And even if you think that he's not going to get the job this cycle, I think it is valuable for any guy, one, to interview. Just you get doing anything multiple times, you get better at it. And also, I thought back to Aaron Glenn last year, that when he got hired by the Jets, I remember Muji, the GM that came from Denver, telling a story that he knew AG because after the 2023 season, AG interviewed in Denver, and he remembered that interview, and that's why part of the reason why he was interested in him. So even if it leads to nothing, or even if you think this is not going to lead to anything for Shep, because there's other more qualified candidates, it could lead to something for him down the road. So it's good in that aspect. I do think, though, that if you're wondering whether or not the Lions would get draft compensation if he were to get hired, I don't believe so. I'm not 100% sure. Again, spreading misinformation. I think you have to be in your coordinator role for 2 years, and he has obviously only been in it for 1 year, so he would not qualify. Don't let him out of the building. I know it's a 2-year commitment. I just don't know if his 4 years as linebacker coach before that count for anything up until this point, or is it only coordinator?
Gotcha.
I think it's only coordinator. But if you're interested in that, yeah, probably not going to get draft compensation if he were to get hired.
I think on the surface, Shep is maybe a little green for the job. First year as a DC, did a pretty decent job, but his unit was the reason that the team fell apart in the second half of the season. Mm-hmm. Still pretty young, 38, I believe, turned 38 earlier this month. The one thing I will say, though, is Kelvin Sheppard played in Miami.
Yeah,
he's got that nice player coach, the former player energy. He's got that Dan Campbell rah run through a wall. And the Miami Dolphins, once upon a time, had Dan Campbell in their doors. They let him go. And I wonder, is there any part of Stephen Ross? It's man, do we right that wrong by trying to bring in Kelvin Sheppard? Pretty much same kind of obviously a lot of difference. Dan Campbell had so much more coaching experience by the time he ended up getting the Detroit job, which is, I think, what led to the success that he's had here. But I do wonder if there's part of him that's man, we let Dan Campbell slip away. And not that Kelvin Sheppard is already on staff there or anything, but former player kind of fits, all that stuff, especially because teams tend to do the exact opposite after they fire a coach, and to go from offensive scheme only, maybe culture, maybe Mike McDaniel was building some sort of culture there, but I don't know if it was as real as something that Kelvin Sheppard could bring.
He got hired because of his offensive mind, that.
Yeah, and Kelvin Sheppard's defense and culture,
right?
Where McDaniel's scheme and offense.
I would also expect Shep to interview well. Like I think like anybody that's ever been in a room with him, like you leave the room like impressed with the person that he is. So I would imagine that he's probably gonna like knock the socks off of whoever he talks to.
As somebody who sits directly in front of him during press conferences, I think it would not be very difficult for him to convince me to give him a job doing anything.
I could imagine him doing the similar things that we've heard of Dan Campbell, like Brian Dable told us, like slamming chairs and throwing fire trucks or whatever he did.
Yeah, throwing fire trucks, definitely. A couple more assistant coach interviews that we've heard about. David Shaw interviewing in Tampa Bay for the Buccaneers offensive coordinator job, and Lions special team assistant Jet Modkins interviewing in Tampa as well for their special team coordinator opening.
Yeah, so a couple guys that Tampa is interested in.
Yeah, they're doing a complete overhaul. Yeah. I cannot believe that Todd Bowles survived, to be quite honest with you.
I know. They cut like 8 guys from the staff, which is nuts. I feel like, you see brain drain like the Lions experienced last year, but not the other way where they choose to let go of that many staff members. I will say the Lions also had staff members interview for positions last year and didn't leave. So it's, not a guarantee that these guys are going to go. Jet, I'm pretty sure, had interviews last year. I think the 49ers, if I remember correctly, that they announced that they interviewed him for their special teams coordinator role. And then also I remember, Hank Fraley interviewed in Seattle. So not a given that they're going to leave, but added experience.
So just in terms of the timeline of this whole thing going forward over the next few weeks, so last year the Lions finalized their coaching staff on February 18th. That is over a month away from now. But there were some different circumstances surrounding that. The one of them being that by this point, January 14th, I don't believe the Lions had even played against the Commanders yet by this point. So like
it was coming up,
that had yet to happen. It was right around this time, but according to NFL insider Jordan Schultz, Mike McDaniel will also be interviewing for the Bucs offensive coordinator job this week. So a guy is in high demand. What was I saying?
You were
so that timeline was kind of extended because just now they figured out, or within the next week or so, they figured out who's going to be leaving. Then those guys all left, and then those guys plucked guys from Detroit staff, which created more openings. And obviously that's something that could absolutely happen again. I don't anticipate as much brain drain happening, but as we mentioned, I think there's been 9 head coaches fired, 16 offensive coordinators, the jobs open, something around that. Like there will be a lot of moving and shaking. Like right now, it's the Lions really only have 2 jobs available. It's offensive coordinator and tight ends coach, but that could very much change like 2-3 weeks from now. All of a sudden somebody gets hired here, and then that kind of starts a domino effect where he hires this offensive coordinator who wants to bring this guy from Detroit. And it's the whole thing is really even yet to kind of begin, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
the carousel.
And there's teams that are still playing that have coordinators and assistant coaches that are going to be up for some of these jobs. So like, we're still going to have to wait. Like in the Rams, they have multiple guys in their building that are going to be candidates for some of these openings,
and vice versa. Like just off the top of my head, I don't really feel like there's any teams in the divisional round who like have a super hot seat guy on staff. But Chargers lost this weekend, fired Greg Roman. Eagles lost this weekend, fired Kevin Patullo. So things are still shaking loose here as we get going on these coordinator and coaching searches. All pros. They've been announced since the last time we talked to you guys. Lions have 4 All-Pros, 2 first team and 2 second team. On the first team, you've got linebacker Jack Campbell and offensive tackle Penei Sewell. On the second team, you've got wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown and defensive end Aiden Hutchinson. Any surprises here? Any snubs? What are your thoughts here?
So I think those were the 4 guys that I expected to make it. I think Jameer is all-pro caliber, but there's only 1 running back that makes it per team. And I think the 2 guys that made it had better seasons than he did, especially because Jameer kind of tapered off towards the last like 4 or 5 games of the season. I think that's probably the first guy. Maybe Jack Fox is another one where I'm like, I think he finished 16th in voting, and I'm like, I feel like he was a better punter than the 16th best punter in the NFL. But I think they ultimately got it right. I think the one argument that I think people could make is that maybe Saint should have been first team instead of second team, and I think there's a good argument for that. He excuse me, he finished 5th, So whatever, there's voting, a first place vote, 50 panelists. A first place vote gets you 3 points. A second team vote gets you 1 point, and then they add it all up from there. Puka Nacua, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, 150 points apiece, was never a question. They were taking up 2 of the 3 spots on the first team. And then it was really a 3-man race between Jamar Chase, George Pickens, and then St. Brown. St. Brown finished below Chase and Pickens, despite being within, I think it was 27 yards of all of them, and having 3 more touchdowns than Chase, and I think 2 more than Pickens. And he also, Jamar Chase missed a game, but also Saint missed basically a full game. Was it Thanksgiving that he rolled his ankle?
Yes.
Yeah, against the Packers. Well, he got rolled up on. So I think there's a very clear argument that you could make that Saint should have gotten it over either of those 2 guys. He didn't. Comes a little bit short of history. He would have been the 10th receiver in the Super Bowl era. That's since 1966 to be first team in 3 consecutive seasons, which is nuts. The guys that have done that, it's Lance Allworth, Cliff Branch, Jerry Rice twice, Herman Moore.
I've never heard of him.
Terrell Owens, Calvin Johnson, Antonio Brown, DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams would have been possible to get into a pretty select group, but falls just short of that.
We got to keep it moving here, but at some point in the offseason, we should do an episode on like Lions guys who are not really thought of as Hall of Fame caliber, but like probably deserve to like have their case looked at. I know we had Lomas Brown on the show earlier in the season and kind of talked about his Hall of Fame candidacy. He was named a semifinalist for the first time, but in doing some research about Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think I found out that like since the 90s, there have been like Herman Moore is the only receiver who is eligible for the Hall of Fame, had 3 first-team All-Pro seasons, and is not in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, because from that list, everyone is in the Hall of Fame except AB, Hopkins, and Adams, and Herman Moore.
Yeah.
If I could add one more thing real quick, a guy that did get his 3rd All-Pro first team in a row was Penei Sewell, including him and Joe Thuney on the Bears. There are now, because he got it this year as well, 35 offensive linemen in the Super Bowl era have done that. First team All-Pro 3 straight seasons. Of those 35, 23 are in the Hall of Fame, 2 are finalists this year, and 6 are not yet eligible for consideration. So if we think those 2 finalists get in at some point, the 6 eligible get in once they retire, that is 31 of the 35 players that Penei Sewell is in a group of that have made the Hall of Fame. There's an argument that you can make that he could retire tomorrow and make it.
I feel like this is something you and I talk about, just like, man, like we're watching so many great players. Like, it's hard to really like, be cognizant of it in the moment, but like, man, you're going to look back at you being like the fans, the listeners, you're going to look back on these days one day and be like, holy smoke. Like, I don't really know if I've ever like they have, and there's obviously some outliers in there, like Calvin Johnson. I watched him growing up. Like, he looked like a Hall of Famer from the day he popped out the womb, but I don't really know if I can like remember like guys, like watching guys like this in my life where just like, there's such surefire Hall of Famers by the age of 25. Like, not surefire, but like they have every accolade that you need, like the AP stuff. Like, they have every single one that you need to like be in that conversation, to be like a borderline lock, based on what happens the rest of your career. But just the accolades is nuts.
I mean, nobody wants to like hear about it after a 9-8 season, understandably so. But like, yeah, like, man, like the fact that like I remember watching Jahmyr Gibbs against the Giants literally took my breath away. I was like, dude, like this guy's unbelievable. Watching Penei Sewell in space, I think it was against the Bucks where he missed actually the block and the guy tackled Gibbs at the 5-yard line and Sewell's beside himself for not making the block. But how fast he was moving, he was like he was like outrunning Gibbs. Like it was bananas at 300 pounds. Saint is awesome, whatever. But yeah, it's really remarkable.
Not so. All right. Last thing here before we get into our 2023-2024 class report. This is going to be a little bit longer episode. I'm not going to lie. I was not expecting that. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. # Richard was right. Dante Moore, Oregon quarterback, Detroit native, returning to college for another year. That has absolutely no real Lions relevancy except for the fact they are picking in the teens it's always good to have more quarterbacks in the top 10, top 5, what have you, when you have one of those draft picks, because it pushes a lot of other talented players down the board. But unfortunately for the Detroit Lions, it does not look like that's going to be the case this season.
He went to King, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Or he did.
Stone's Throw. We can probably see it from our apartment.
Yeah, I remember I was an intern, and I think I did. They sent me out to King for one story, and I like vaguely knew him because I wasn't from here and I didn't cover like high school recruiting, but I knew him, and I was like, oh shoot, that's Dante Moore.
Yeah. All right. Before we get out of here, this is something I did with the rookie class the other day, and I kind of just wanted to do it with the rookie class and the 2024 class. Just kind of quickly go through what they did and really just discuss what their outlooks look like for next year. I think that'll, we'll discuss maybe a little bit more with this year's rookies on this year's production, basically because the entire 2024 class was hurt. But I am interested in kind of taking a look at like what the opportunity will be for some of these guys. By the way, your haircut looks great. I feel like I haven't told you that yet, but it does.
You.
So we're just going to do that real quick because there are some guys here I'm curious to get your thoughts on. We'll start with the 2025 class. Round 1, Tyleik Williams, defensive lineman from Ohio State. Year 1, 19 pressures, 1 sack, 12 run stops, 18 combined tackles. Does not play a position where his production is going to show up on the stat sheet. So I wouldn't read too much into those numbers, but he had a big role to start the season, and then Aleem McNeil came back, and his role kind of dipped a little bit. But then he came back on a little bit stronger towards the end of the season, and I feel like his outlook is I don't want to say a surefire starter, but a probable starter for next season. And one of the things I will say about him is that all we heard on draft day was like, oh, he's mini Aleem. Aleem McNeil was not anywhere near as advanced in his rookie season as Tyleik Williams was in his. So just from the disruption standpoint, from the technique standpoint, from the fact that he kind of just – even when it wasn't like down in, down out, like he did impact football games, which I think is a really encouraging sign.
Yeah, and like you said, he's definitely in line to start. I think even if you bring a guy like DJ Reader back, it's probably going to be in more of a reserve role, maybe like flip their responsibilities a little bit. And Tyleik's going to have the opportunity to play with you always hear guys when they come back from major injury, like Aleem McNeil, it's really the second year when they come back that they get back to normal. Yeah. So Tyleik will get to play next to a hopefully fully healthy Aleem McNeil in 2026.
Tate Ratledge, offensive lineman, Georgia, round 2 pick. Honestly, had his fair share of rough moments, no doubt. He was like beating himself up super bad on locker room cleanout day. But I also think that he was probably the least of their concerns on the interior as the season went on.
I feel really good about Tate. 2 thumbs up, starting right guard next year. I don't love the idea of him at center just because we haven't seen it, and then they tried it and they quickly pulled the plug this year. So it's like, maybe just keep him where he's comfortable. It
sounds like he very much does not want to do it.
Yeah, basically his whole thing is I'm more comfortable at right guard, but I'll do whatever I'm asked, to the best of my ability.
Which is just what anybody says at any job ever.
Well, I was gonna say it's
Hey Rich, can you cover baseball? Well, you don't really like covering baseball, but you do whatever you gotta do.
It's the Graham Glasgow. Graham Glasgow signed here however many years ago to come back to play left guard, and they were like, actually play right guard. And then he's like, okay. And then they're like, actually play center. And he's like, I don't want to, but okay.
Yeah.
So I think you feel great about Tate regardless. I think I'm penciling him into the starting right guard job next year.
And this is different than the optimism that we had about Mahogany at the end of last season, because Mahogany, much smaller sample size, just 2 games. He was better in those games than I think Tate Ratledge was at most points in the season. Okay. But still, minimum sample size, and in those games, he was playing next to Frank Ragnow, which matters a lot, as we saw this season. Yeah. Round 3, Isaac TeSlaa, wide receiver, Arkansas. Very, very, I don't want to call it a weird season, just like statistically. It
was a weird season.
It almost it was just the strangest thing ever. He made 6 of the best touchdown catches you've ever seen. Actually, I think the only one that wasn't jaw-dropping is the one against Dallas when Goff just kind of floated the ball over the DB and it just landed right in his hands. But that was the only normal catch he made all season. I think his body hit the ground on every other catch. All 15 other catches that he made this season, 16 catches, 239 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's an insane. You go ahead. I'm going to go through the list of receiving touchdown leaders and see guys that TeSlaa had more touchdowns than.
Isaac TeSlaa would run face first through a brick wall if you told him like, hey, there's a touchdown on the other side of that brick wall. Like the most like biggest example of that was that Minnesota touchdown where it was actually like a carbon copy of like the Steelers play the week before where he couldn't haul it in. And then talking to him in the locker room in between the Steelers and Vikings game, he was like, I have no idea how I didn't catch that ball. Like I watched the replay and it just doesn't compute in my brain that I didn't catch it. And then he goes out and makes basically the same play against Minnesota. It's remarkable, like the hands that he has and how he can win contestedly.
So more touchdown catches than Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, Rashee Rice, missing time. Zay Flowers from the Baltimore Ravens.
They had like 3, right?
Yeah. So just a quick little sampling of all the guys. And so a lot of guys had 6 touchdowns. That's probably more appropriate class. Nico Collins, 6 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, 6 touchdowns. DJ Moore, 6 touchdowns. Romeo Dobbs, 6 touchdowns. Roma Dunze, Emeka Ibuka, Tucker Kraft, Lad McConkey, Colston Loveland, Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins, 6 touchdowns. Good for him. Shout out my guy, Jaden Higgins.
And I think the encouraging thing with Tesla is even if you like, because I also have issues with this, like whatever, spending essentially 3 third-round picks on a guy that's going to be behind Saint and JMO for the foreseeable future, like just is going to be what it's going to be. Removing that for a second, having his skill set next to it's like the most perfect like complementary trio
100%,
ever. Like
100%.
Best deep, potentially Alec Pierce exists, but potentially best deep ball threat in the NFL, best slot receiver that we've seen in quite some time, or just receiver period, and then a jump ball maniac that basically has like feels like he has stickum on his gloves, like every time he goes up to make a contested catch, and then you add Sam Laporta, who does like a little bit of all of those things from the tight end position. Like it is very like almost like you're building a Madden team and you're like, I want this guy to do this and this guy to do that and that guy to do that, and they're all young and they're all under contract for besides Laporta for the next 3+ years.
I think if I had to pick a current or an active NFL player and they had to win a jump ball to save my life, I think I might pick Isaac Tisla.
Him or like Pickens, maybe?
Or Justin
Oh,
Jefferson.
no, it's Puka. It's Puka.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
But I gotta say, I could see a few years from now, maybe that conversation is a little interesting. All right, let's move on here. Round 5, they got Miles Frazier, offensive lineman from LSU, missed most of the season with a knee injury, just 46 offensive snaps all season. Debuted, I believe, in week 14 against the Dallas Cowboys. He'll be competing for a role, but I don't think, based on what Mahogany showed this year, like that it's out of the question that he wins it, but also, like we talked about, that creating competition, are they going to feel comfortable going into this season being like, all right, well, we got Ratledge at right guard. We'll sign a veteran center, and then we'll just like get this collection of like 3 draft picks to fight it out for left guard. I don't love it, but like considering what you need to do at left tackle as well, and like some other holes in your roster, like I almost feel like it might just end up going that way.
Well, and I don't think that's necessarily like a bad thing. Then like either Mahogany improves or Frazier with a training with the opportunity with a full training camp wins the job, like one of those two, and the third maybe if you use another mid-round pick or whatever kind of pick on an offensive lineman. Like I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to have 3 young guys competing for one spot, assuming you do fill that center hole with a veteran, a guy that can play. Yeah.
Round 6, Ahmed Hassanin, defensive end, Boise State. He did not appear in a game this season, suffered a pectoral injury in Detroit's 3rd preseason game. I don't necessarily like he still has a steep climb up the depth chart, despite the fact that he's currently the 2nd person on the depth chart. Just because of that all of Detroit's edge signings are players are pretty much free agents this offseason. But I mean, you can't really even factor him into your plans at all. I think like he exists, he's there, but like you're not really thinking about him contributing next season.
He's a lottery ticket. Like if you go to the training camp next year and he does prove like he can play, like great. Like now we have another guy, like another rotational edge piece that we could put on the field, which I think this team needed more of those this year. But I agree, like he can't. We're gonna get to Ennis Rakeshaw here, I think, in a second when we go to the 2024 class. But I think it's kind of a similar thing with Ennis, where it's like for different reasons. But Hey, if Ennis works out, and if let's say they re-sign Amik and Ennis beats out Amik and they put him in the slot, great. But you can't just go with Ennis in your slot or as your nickel corner. Just like I don't think you can go with Hassani and be like he's going to be edge 3 or 4. It's lottery ticket. If it works out, great.
Yeah, let alone edge 2. But like you literally can't even say like, oh, this guy's going to be edge 4. like he is raw, and we saw nothing from him. Just because he was not at practice all season. Then when he was in practice, it was behind closed doors. So didn't see anything.
Apparently was a maniac behind the scenes in practice, though.
I mean, I don't necessarily know that is a compliment.
No, Brad Holmes mentioned him without saying his name in his end of season address. Where I forget, there was some question that was asked about like philosophy of drafting like developmental guys versus guys with upside, blah blah blah. And he goes, we drafted a guy this year that is at practice that like people hate. He said, I don't remember if that's exactly what he said, but he's like, guys hate going up against him because his motor's so high. I'm pretty sure he knocked Jared Goff down in one of the practices that we heard. Yeah. That was when Casey Rogers got asked about that. I don't know if he knocked him down or just ran into him and Jared stayed on his feet. There was contact, which shouldn't happen with the quarterback in practice. And Casey said that he pulled Hassanin off to the side and said, hey, if you hurt him, not only are you going to be looking for a new job, I'm going to be looking for a new job. So you need to not do that.
Classic. All right, up next we got round 7, Dan Jackson, safety out of Georgia. He also did not appear in the game, suffered a season-ending leg injury during training camp. He, despite not showing us anything, again, not a guy that I think you can really factor into your plans, but with long-term injury concerns to both Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph, I mean, there's something on the table for him. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be a starting role, like no matter what, even if Brian Branch isn't ready to go, I don't know that he's going to be able to just, I don't know that that's in the cards for him. Like I'm trying to take his like pedigree into account too, or just, I guess his skill level. And like, I don't necessarily know that he will be able to have the ability to win a starting job. But what I will say is that if he plays well enough, like there's nothing stopping him from winning a starting job, at least while they wait for Brian Branch to come back.
And I think he could be value on special teams, which he was at Georgia. Like that, that's part of the reason why he got drafted in the 7th round. I think of a guy like a role like Daniel Thomas played this year. Like Daniel Thomas ended up having to start towards the end of the season because they lost all their safeties. But Daniel Thomas was on this team because of what he does on special teams, which I think there could be a similar path, perhaps for Dan Jackson. His leg injury, I think, is the most perplexing thing that happened to me this season, because that happened in a training camp practice where is the full thing is open to fans. It was a day, I believe fans were there, to fans and all reporters. Not a single one of us saw what happened. I remember afterwards all of us being confused when he got put on IR, because then we all we got together, like all the other media outlets were talking. It was like, did you see it? Did you see it? Because usually at least one person does. Nobody saw it. I would love. And then we never saw Dan in the locker room again, so we didn't have a chance to ask him. When I do see Dan Jackson again, I would like to get to the bottom of what exactly happened, because it's pretty perplexing.
Yeah. All right, round 7 as well. We've got Dominic Lovett, wide receiver, also from Georgia. Played in 12 games this season. All of his snaps, I believe, are on special teams. He had 14 offensive snaps, 50 snaps on special teams, so just did not get a ton of looks. And what's interesting about him is that early on in training camp, I think he was the rookie receiver that was maybe raising a little more eyebrows like the first couple days. And then Isaac Tesla came on and kind of, became the star of that show. But then go ahead.
I was going to say Lovett also got hurt in training camp, which I think stunted a little bit of his growth and momentum. I forget if it might have been, I think it was abdomen, abdominal. I believe it was something related to his core, because I remember him explaining that, like, I think he reached basically, and something happened. Yeah. But he missed, I want to say, like 2 weeks, which is an eternity.
It's a long time in training camp,
especially in your first one.
Right. So I don't really know what his outlook for next season is. Like, I think he'll be in the mix, but like, I think his role and just like existence on the active roster is like hyper dependent. I think we're wearing the same shirt, bro. I'm sorry. I hate to do that the way I did it, but an hour and 3 minutes in, I think we're wearing the same shirt.
I don't think mine seems a little bit lighter than yours.
Yeah, but it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, mine's from
Mine is not. Mine is custom colors. I think it is the comfort colors.
Comfort colors. Yeah, comfort colors.
No free ads. So Dominic Lovett's, I think, outlook has a lot to do with what Detroit decides to do with Khalif Raymond, because they're a little bit redundant, just like smaller receivers. Like, you're never going to have them both on the field at the same time.
They both do the punt return.
They both do. They can both return kicks. Lovett is a little more like gunner on special teams than returner, but he did do some return stuff, was doing it throughout training camp and whatnot. So I do think that there is a path for him, but not or a path to him being more involved. Like, he can still be around and have the same season that he did next year, but it's a matter of whether he's going to get offensive looks as that fourth wide receiver, the fifth wide receiver, if he's going to do kick returns, punt returns, stuff like that.
Right. Agreed. All
right. Let's move on to the 2024 class. We definitely should have split this up, but when you make a promise to the people at the top of the episode, it's hard to rescind on that. 2024 class report, and we're going to provide an outlook for year 3. That is typically the season where everybody says, like, oh, you see the most jump. Everybody, that illustrious year 2 jump. It's not quite as sexy as the year 3 jump. So those are the guys that we're talking about in this section. Round 1, Terran Arnold, cornerback, Alabama, the guy everybody wants to see take that year 3 leap. I think started to show a lot of growth as the season went on this year, but ultimately missed 9 games with varied injuries, had 8 pass deflections, 31 tackles, and interception. So just a weird up and down year where I think he started to show a little bit of the ceiling, but ultimately didn't do it enough to, I guess, probably get credit for that from the fan base. However, I do think, like, as good as I felt about him coming into this season, and I felt really good about him coming into the season. I'm not going to lie to you folks. Watch him in training camp. He was fantastic. I have, the ups and downs are concerning. Maybe the injury stuff is concerning, but I also haven't really wavered from my belief that he'll eventually be like a cornerback 1 in the league.
This is skewed because he missed time in like each of these games, but over his last 5 appearances on the season, he allowed 98 yards on 10 catches on 21 targets. And he played 112 coverage snaps. That's really the key. The coverage snaps is really the key more than the 5 games, because he missed time within those games. 112 coverage snaps, allowed 98 yards on 10 catches. I would say he was turning the corner, like when he got hurt, which makes it all the more a shame that he did.
Yeah. Round 2, Ennis Racetraw, cornerback, Missouri. Injuries cost him his entire second season. They pretty much cost him his entire first one. I think he played a few games here or there, but a guy who you really, like we just said, can't really factor into your future plans because you don't know what his health situation is going to look like. And I do wonder, like, I do want to make a point. Like, I don't know if that's fair, right? Like, I think we like to think guys are injury prone. I feel like there's some science people out there who tell you that, like, being injury prone isn't necessarily a thing. Like, if you break a left arm, you're not likely to tear your right ACL or something like that. But I don't know. It's just a weird thing because, like, for all intents and purposes, like, we should be thinking about his future independent of the injuries that he's had. But unfortunately, just because of the way that sports work, we're not really able to do that.
Well, I don't think they should get in the way of his opportunity. Like, I think he should have every opportunity to win a job next year at training camp. It's just that you can't go back to the competition thing. You can't go into it saying, like, this is Ennis's job. Well, you know what I mean? Like, it just has to be him. I used the example earlier, him and Amik. Like, one of them, they got to fight. One of them's got to win. Like, not literally, obviously, fight for a spot, and then one of them's got to win.
That's life, baby. Fight, win, and love.
I think that's the way that Ennis has to be, not treated, but looked at, I guess, heading into year 3.
He can be no higher than CB4 on your depth chart, which isn't really saying much, to be quite honest with you.
Like, going
inside of, like, one guy, yeah.
Right, going into it. But I mean, like, if he stays healthy and has a stellar training camp, like,
for sure,
do whatever.
Let him be your CB2. If he's going out there, all of a sudden he looks better than DJ Reed. I mean, what you got to do, what you got to do. But yeah, as far as, like I said, going, like, the depth chart pre-training camp can't have been a strike shot CB4.
Pretty much exactly how I feel about Rakestraw is it's similar, not exactly similar to how I feel about who we're going to talk about next, the fourth rounder here,
100%.
where and Brad Holmes said as much. You know, what's the old saying that Dan Campbell always talks about? The 2 years plus a training camp is when you really know when a guy has it or not. Like a developmental guy. Well, this is it. 2 years for Giovanni Manu. Here's his training camp coming up. If Taylor Decker retires and you go out and invest at left tackle, that doesn't mean Giovanni Manu can't start at left tackle. It just means that you can't go into training camp saying that is our replacement for Taylor Decker. It can't happen.
Yes.
But maybe it does. It just can't be. That can't be plan A.
Yeah. I would hurt you. I think you were more correct when you said it can't happen, more than saying it could happen. I mean, dude, I don't want to call it a fireable offense. It would be malpractice to go into August with no injuries and Giovanni Manu is offensive tackle too.
Well, what I'm saying is if you go into training camp and then, like we said with Rakestraw, if he's just a rock star, then he's a rock star. Like, you know what I mean? Then you figure it out. But like I said, you almost have to like act as if he doesn't exist when you're going into your like acquisition plans. And Brad Holmes even said, like, am I going to stand up here and say I have conviction that guy's going to be a starter next year? No, I do not. And so I think that's honestly, that was kind of a rare vote of no confidence that he's kind of given somebody. And I think Giovanni Manu had I would say a promising season, like looked a little bit better in training camp, got a ton of first team reps with Taylor Decker, Dan Skipper missing a ton of time, got the first career start against Cincinnati, definitely had some rough moments, definitely almost got Jared Goff killed once or twice. But for the most part, on a down-to-down basis, I thought showed a lot of promise. And go ahead. The fact that, so I was not here for his rookie training camp, but from everything I've heard from you and other people that watch practice, it was like, man, this is really rough. Like for Manu, but that was expected. Raw player, played in Canada, like it understood that was going to be the case. The fact that I know he had his low moments, the fact that he went from that to being able to survive for a full game against an NFL defense that includes Trey Hendrickson. Like Trey Hendrickson beat him. Like he got a sack on Goff. I think that was the blindside hit, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that Manu could play 60 snaps or whatever it was, and that the offense was tenable, and that you won the game, like that's encouraging to me.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree. I will say, if he were to have a good training camp this season and like look like he could be a starter, I would say he's right on schedule. Like,
agreed.
That's the unfortunate thing about the position that he's in from his perspective is like, yeah, he hasn't showed a whole lot, but for these developmental guys, like that's kind of what you expect through the first 2 seasons. And then to your point, it is this year 3 training camp where it's like, you got it or you don't. We saw the same thing with Hendon Hooker, Broderick Martin. Like that was exactly how they handled those guys too. So I think Giovanni Manu has maybe showed a little bit more promise than those guys, or I don't know, maybe not. I think you could just as easily make the argument that he hasn't. But we should probably move on. Round 4. Sione Vaki, running back, Utah, special teams demon, 497 special team snaps over the last 2 seasons, only 1 offensive snap in 2025, however, which is not exactly what you want for a guy that you took in the 4th round. I do think, though, with some, a little bit of maybe possible dissent between David Montgomery and the Lions, Brad Holmes openly considering the possibility of trading him or letting him go or just letting him, find a team that makes him happy. I would like to see Sione Vaki challenge for the RB2, challenge for the backup spot behind Jahmyr Gibbs next season. I don't think it's unrealistic. I think when you invest a 4th round pick in a guy, especially a running back, like that is a more than realistic expectation. And that as the Lions continue to get better and continue to add salary, like these massive, massive salaries for guys like Aiden Hutchinson, like they're going to be able to need to find those like little cheap, like cost-effective players. And that was the one reason why David Montgomery's extension never really made a whole lot of sense to me, is it's like, that's the place to get cheap laborers. Running back too. I understand the value of him, but at the same time, I feel like this is kind of Sione Vaki's year to grab the bull by the horns.
If they move on from Demo. I think if
yes.
Jahmyr and David Montgomery are both on this team, it's going to be more of the same for him on offense.
For sure. But maybe I don't know. Maybe like find it. It doesn't bother me per se, but I feel like you have to at least try to get more offensively out of a 4th-round pick. You can't just be like, yeah, it's got to play special teams.
For sure, but we're already talking about like David Montgomery's not getting enough carries. Like, you know what I mean? We can't like
for sure.
There's only so much if they're both 100%. On the team.
That's a good point. Very good point. All right, we're going to move on. We got 2 more players next from this draft class, and then we're going to play a game. So this is just going to be a 90-minute episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. We've got Mekhi Wingo, round 6, defensive tackle from LSU. He was a healthy scratch all dang season, played in just 2 games, coming off a knee injury.
Except against the Bears.
Except week 18.
Mekhi Wingo's undefeated this in 2020.
Oh, but were both of his games against the Bears? I knew he played week 18. I didn't know his first game was against the Bears. That's funny.
Yep.
A really disappointing season from him. Like, no other way to slice it. I think, for a 6th-round pick, maybe he didn't expect much, but I thought he showed a lot of promise as a rookie, and then he had the season-ending knee injury, so maybe that played into some of his production and his effectiveness as well. But generally speaking, I think it was disappointing to see him continue to show up on the inactives report every single week.
When Dan Campbell got asked about him, he seemed to imply like Mekhi is doing his job. It's just basically like a numbers game type of thing, which fine. But regardless, still disappointing that a guy that did play and that showed you a little bit of something before getting hurt in his rookie season, at least at a rotational level, couldn't figure out a way, or the team, whether either he didn't show the team enough or the team was not imaginative. I think I added an extra syllable, imaginative enough.
You're doing great, pal.
To get him on the field. It's disappointing that he only played 2 games.
I do think that that's a fair point that we should highlight, is the fact that defensive line room was pretty much loaded, and they didn't really play like it towards the end of the season. I get that, they weren't the most effective pass rush, but they had good players at every level. And it's like, you're gonna put him in there against DJ or over DJ Reader? No, 2 completely different type of player. That's another thing too. It's like maybe they would have liked to have him active over Tyler Lacey for a game, but Tyler Lacey can play defensive end, and in a way that is actually conducive to the scheme that they want to play. Whereas, I don't know, maybe you could throw Mekhi Wingo out there, but you're not going to be playing the same defense. I can tell you that much.
Well, Mekhi Wingo has a 100% winning percentage, and
that's true. That's true. He's probably the best player on this list. Round 6, we got Christian Mahogany, offensive lineman from Boston College. He rounds out the list here. He started at left guard. Let's back it up. He got those 2 starts in his rookie year. He was fantastic. I will be the first to admit, last offseason, I was looking at Christian Mahogany. I'm like, yeah, that guy, what he did in those 2 games, starter.
Agreed.
Ultimately, that was a little premature because he had some pretty big ups and downs this season. I would argue, along with Graham Glasgow, maybe the most inconsistent player on this unit, and arguably even more inconsistent than Graham. And then he has a broken leg in week 9, and then he comes back towards the end of the season, and he doesn't look good in either of those games. Obviously, still probably reeling a little bit from the injury, but I would say just 100%.
Right.
But
I'm adding on.
What a commentary!
I'm not discounting you. I'm adding.
Why is he out there?
Yeah, so with Mahogany, it's kind of similar to how I view, we mentioned with Rakestraw, with Manu or whatever. I would feel uncomfortable if you pencil him in, or I guess Sharpie him in as a starter. But if you pencil him in the competition to be a starter, it's okay. I think you're in a pretty decent spot then. I'll be the first to admit, how you were, he comes off that rookie season, and I'm like, man, he looked good, really, really good. And then we go into training camp. And I'm be honest, a lot of times in training camp, they're not going full speed. They're not going to the ground. So when they run the ball, I'm like, I kind of think I know what's going on, but I could have been a bigger gain, could have been not as bigger game, gain. I don't know 100%, but what I think you can draw from is the one-on-ones. And I can tell you that Mahogany crushed it, in the one-on-ones. He was awesome. That only bolstered my belief in him. So, maybe it was just a down year. Maybe he was just kind of everything that happened after the injury. I'm forgetting from my mind because I just think it's not fair to count that against him. He was on the field. There's a certain standard you're on the field. You have to play to that standard. However, within the context of he just broke a bone in his leg like 7 weeks ago, I think you can get a little bit of an excuse for that.
Sure.
The run game stuff was promising the first half of the year. Got to improve as a pass protector, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, that rounds out our 2025 and 2024 draft class report and outlooks. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing that.
I did as well.
We would like to let the people get going here, but we do have a game that we promised them at the top of the show. It's a new game. Can you explain it to me? Because it sounds like we're going to be playing it for the rest of the offseason.
Yeah, it's a common game if you listen to some like other sports podcasts. It's not an original idea from us, but some people play like keep 4, cut 4, keep 3, cut 5, like whatever, things like that. Keep cut, basically. And we might tweak the numbers depending on the topic or whatever. For today's episode, it's going to be keep 4, cut 4. I'm going to give Nolan 8 players, one at a time, and he doesn't know who's coming after that, and he has to decide whether to keep. So, for instance, if I'm doing best quarterbacks or just ranked quarterbacks or whatever, and the first 3 quarterbacks I give him are Tom Brady, Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers, and he keeps all 3, well, guess what, buddy? You only got one more spot. Like, are you going to keep
I think
guy?
I think I'd be okay with that, though.
Well, it was just an example. For today's list, we can get more creative with these topics down the line. I just wanted to do a kind of a, I guess, simple topic.
Okay.
So I did cornerbacks, and you're not ranking best cornerbacks. I'm
just trying to get the best 4 of the 8.
Correct. It could be cornerbacks that were fine. It could be quarterbacks that were not very good. So we'll see.
Okay. All right. Let's do it.
Right. Your first player is Deion Sanders.
Keep. Hall of Famer. I think he's a college football and probably pro football Hall of Famer. Absolute legend of the game. One of the best corners to ever do it.
Agreed. I think that's a good decision. I did this exercise myself, and I kept him on my first go around as well.
Okay. All right.
Your second player. I think this
bro's always doing exercises himself. I love it.
This is I think the pivot point for you right here. The second name, Richard Sherman.
Ooh. Is he in the Hall of Fame yet?
I
feel like if I keep a Hall of Famer, then I'm doing good. You know.
I don't believe Sherm is eligible yet.
3-time All-Pro, 5-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, Hall of Fame, All 2010s team. Zone corner though. You know.
Bro, you just called Richard Sherman fake corner.
No, I'm just saying he might not be there. There's some other guys on this list, and I don't.
You called Richard Sherman Mickey Mouse.
No, I did not. I said he's his own corner. There's literally just facts.
You said but you said it with disdain. You said whatever. You said whatever he did doesn't count.
That's subjective. That was you're putting that on me.
Where are you putting Richard Sherman?
I am cutting Richard Sherman.
Wow. Future Hall of Famer Richard Sherman cutting him. Wow. Cornerback 3, Darrelle Revis.
Oh, keep.
Yeah, agreed.
This is like the first cornerback that I was like cognizant of, and
Same.
I just I remember like playing football with my friends, and it's just like it's Bianchi Island, baby. Like it's just like so influential.
Yeah.
About the time that I started like really getting into football. So.
Bianchi Island was the defensive version of You Got Mossed.
Yes, absolutely. Once you got on the island, I didn't let you leave.
Third or fourth name, Champ Bailey.
Champ Bailey.
Hall of Fame.
I want to keep because I'm going to keep. I think there's an argument that this is one of the greatest football names of all time. Champ
Absolutely.
Bailey. What a sick name. And he played for the Broncos. Like just a cool player. I didn't watch the Broncos too much, but I just remember him growing up, and he was like, if Darrelle Revis was the first cornerback that I was cognizant of, Champ Bailey was probably the second one. So I'm going to keep him. All-time name.
Champ Bailey leads the NFL ever in I guess since the stat was tracked in pass deflections. Can you guess how many he has?
Ooh. I'm going to go with
you want to know how many seasons he played?
This is I feel like this is yeah, go ahead.
15 seasons.
Okay. I feel like this is like guessing like the number of M&Ms in a jar.
It is.
Like if you just glance at it, like there's really no realistic way. I'm gonna guess 246.
I'm actually impressed you got you're within 40, 203. I was afraid you were gonna say 400 or something like that.
No.
So 203 all-time record.
Okay, there we go.
Your next name on the list here, Night Train Lane, Detroit Lion legend.
Oh man.
Yeah,
This is really
tough.
mean.
You only got one more spot left on that
I
key.
know. Well, it's like I didn't watch Dick Night Train Lane.
No, you didn't.
I've heard of him.
Seven-time first team All-Pro. Not in the Super Bowl era, if you wanna say that. I know you.
He's actually only 3-time first team All-Pro. That I do.
I know you like discounting cornerbacks' accomplishments if they don't play man and play in the or anything like that. So you can do that again here.
Stop it. Oh man, I really want to keep Night Train Lane for the people. All-time name. I didn't watch them, and they weren't really passing it that well in the 50s, if I'm being honest. Quiet as it's kept. They weren't really slinging it like that.
Wow.
Impressive, no doubt. I don't want to disparage them, but
you walk by that guy's picture and the facility at Allen Park every day. We're in that building, and it just means nothing to you.
Well, listen, I don't want to let my my proximity to the Detroit Lions organization to cloud my judgment in this exercise.
Man, so I guess you're cutting Night Train.
I'm cutting Night Train Lane. I'm sorry, Night Train Lane.
That's unbelievable.
It's not personal. It's just business.
3 more names left. Charles Woodson.
Man, Charles Woodson. I'm gonna keep him. Because he is part of the illustrious group. I think there's 5 to 7 football players of all time who won a Heisman and Super Bowl, I believe it is. So he is as accomplished as you could possibly get. Only defensive player to win the Heisman since forever.
Yeah.
On top of everything he did in the pros, he had a Hall of Fame pro career. I'm trying to think. Won a Super Bowl with the Packers.
Also defensive player of the year one year.
Also a defensive player of the year. I feel really good about it. And he was playing defense in the 2000s, when it was real passing was going on.
Okay.
Not like this fake passing that's happening today where guys are just walking up, not even reading the defense or just hiking it and running it. Yeah, back when I was growing up, they played real football.
Next name for you is Pat Surtain, also a defensive player.
Both these guys are cuts. Not a Hall of Famer though.
You got to cut Pat Surtain.
That's okay. I'm fine with that. He has not accomplished as much as anybody else on this list. With all due respect to Mr. Surtain.
Last player you're cutting is Jalen Ramsey.
Wait, are you asking for Pat Surtain or Pat Surtain 2?
2. And then the last player you're cutting here is Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
So you're full. Wow, you're keeping Deion Sanders, Darrelle Revis, Champ Bailey, Charles Woodson. You are cutting Richard Sherman, Night Train Lane, Pat Surtain II, and Jalen Ramsey. As much
I feel like I crushed it. Did I go 8 for 8?
So I think the locks to me, and maybe this is just because the era that I was born in, is Deion and Revis. I think I'm putting those two no matter what in the section. And then I think the last 2 spots is down to Champ Bailey, Woodson, or Night Train, with maybe Sherman in there as the 4th person. So as much as I like to make fun of you or mess with you during this, I think you did a great job.
Nailed it. Knocked it out the park.
And we will, going forward, we can also rank, we're not ranking, we're splitting. We could do, moments or things of that nature, coaches and things like that. Anything.
I can't wait to scrutinize your answers next week.
Well, I think to be fair, I'm going to make my decisions, but I'm not going to, while making
you're going to try to be respectful.
Yeah, this guy, Wouldn't have done it back in my day.
Well, I'm just saying. The ball didn't even have laces in the 50s, I'm pretty sure. Can't imagine they were getting too much velocity on those throws.
We're going to hit like 90
With all due
minutes.
respect, we are going to hit 90 minutes. All right, I think we should probably stop it here. Thank you to everybody for listening to this wild and silly episode. Honestly, one of my favorite episodes we've done all year. So had a great time. If you liked it, it's third time now, but please press that like and subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Really helps us grow. Richard, anything else that you want to tell the people before we send them off into their week?
No, enjoy the off season. Enjoy January.
Enjoy January and enjoy the Gridiron Gang podcast. Same time, same place next week.